Hi everybody, no doubt about it, this is one of my favourite sites in the entire world, and today I'm going to do a short guide to ancient woodland. Come with me. One of my favourite things about these sorts of woodlands is the smell and the soil. And you know, what's wonderful about the soil is it's built up over thousands and thousands of years. So here on the top here we've got last year's leaf litter and all these little bits of twigs that have fallen down. But you don't have to dig much further to get into leaf litter from previous years. Have a look at this. And there's lots of little things in there, and this is still, you know, you can still recognise that there's bits of twigs in there, but if you dig a little bit deeper, which I like to do, you get to this very, very chocolatey soil. And I have to say that that is one of my favourite smells, and I recommend highly getting a good sniff of ancient soil if you can. Maybe not quite so highly recommended, but something that I do like to do is to take a tiny little piece like that and taste it. And really, you can begin to sort of really feel about how organic and lovely that soil is compared to soils. I mean, you don't have to do this. I eat soils in various places to compare the textures and the flavours. And this stuff here has been broken down by tiny organisms year after year, and it creates this really delicious, rich soil. So that's one of the things that supports this incredible biodiversity, this variety of wildlife that thrives in a woodland like this. These bluebell woods have a particular character all of their own, and that is partly because they have been managed in a particular way traditionally over hundreds of years. And although this bit of woodland behind me here is not currently being managed as it would have been, you can see the evidence of how it was once upon a time, and it's here. This is a hazel tree, and the way that these woodlands would be managed would be that on a kind of 7 to 10 year rota, an area of the woodland would be cut down to the ground, because this would regenerate. And you can see here that there's lots of growth coming out. There's some of the bigger ones are the older ones, and then you've got these younger ones. And by harvesting that, there were all kinds of woodland products that you could use. So they might just be used for firewood, but they could be used for making hurdles, for making tool handles, for making spars for hedge laying and all sorts of things. So very, very useful. And by cutting them back, what it does is it actually creates a varied woodland. So you get open glades, which are great for some of the plants and animals that like open areas. So butterflies, bluebells, for example. Bluebells love coppice woodland, and it is often associated with an ancient woodland. And one of the other things that is associated with this is one of my favourite British mammals, the dormouse. I've been lucky enough to see some dormice in my time, and they're protected by European law, and actually you're not really allowed to handle them, but there are some signs that you can look for to tell whether they are around, and I'm told that there is a small population in this area here. Now they are very shy and they're nocturnal, and that means that they are active mostly at night. They're very good tree climbers, so they spend a lot of their time up in the canopy in amongst the top of the hazel trees. But when the weather gets cold, they hibernate, and actually if it gets a little bit chilly they go into something called a state of torpor, which is kind of a deep sleep, and they can be in that state for up to 3/4 of the year, which is an amazing fact on its own. But there are some little signs that you can look for to see. I've just had a little look around. It would be better to do this in the autumn when there's fresh hazelnut shells lying around, but I've got a few here that I've just picked up, and if you just have a little look here, we can have a little, I don't know whether these are perfect examples or not, but a dormice has a particular way of biting into a hazelnut, and it creates quite a neat circle, and this one may be dormice bit, and there seem to be little nibble marks around the edge there, and it's quite neat. Whereas if you get something that's been cracked open like this, or like this, that's more likely to have been done by a wood mouse. So you can survey for dormice without disturbing them just by going around looking at hazelnuts that have landed on the forest floor and seeing whether they've been opened neatly or not. If you've seen any of my other guides, you may well have heard me talking about ancient woodland indicators. And there's a number of flowers that where you find them, they indicate that where you are is an ancient woodland, and bluebells are one of those. But it's not just bluebells. There are ferns, such as hard fern and polypody, that also, and hart's tongue, that you can associate with ancient woodland. And also, I'm not very good at lichens, but growing on the trees, if you're an expert in lichens, you can. There are certain lichens that are also associated with ancient woodlands. So, I mean, they're very important sites, and the reason that they're very important is that there's not much of it left. In Devon, we've got about 11% of Devon is covered in woodland, which is about the same as the whole of England. And of that, only about 1/4 of that is ancient woodland, and it's been lost at a tremendous rate, and it's impossible to replace. And it's fine for some animals that are mobile, that can move from one site to another, but for a species like a dormouse, if they were lost from this woodland, there's no way that other dormice could make it to this habitat from somewhere else, because there's not woodland between here and the next piece of ancient woodland. So it's really important that we protect them and look after them and value them as we move further forward into the future. Lovely. Well, that's the end of this particular guide. There's another ancient woodland up on Dartmoor that I'm going to take you to at some point, maybe later on in the summer, because it's a really special woodland. As you can see here, this is all really these hazel stools that I was talking about. You can see, you'll recognise them because they have more than one trunk coming up amongst them, and in amongst that there are what they call the standard trees, which in this woodland are mostly oak trees, but there are some ash trees, and there are also some beech trees at the far end of it. But I hope you enjoyed it. Please come back and look out for my videos, and I'll see you all soon. Cheerio.